Dragon Ball and video games go together like Goku and bottomless bowls of food. Over the years, we've seen the Dragon Ball franchise adapted into just about every genre. Fighting games, action RPGs, card games, even some questionable Kinect experiments. But if you were a Dragon Ball fan back in the 2000s, the odds are you spent most of your time kicking your friend's ass in Budokai or Budokai Tenkaichi. That was the formula. You pick your favorite fighter, mash out a Kamehameha, and just hope that your controller somehow survived. And that's also why today's subject seems so unique in comparison. Released in 2009 for the Nintendo DS, Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans took a risk. Instead of giving us another flashy fighter, it went full-on turn-based RPG, and not a shallow licensed cash grab RPG either. This very title was developed by Monolith Soft. Yes, the very same studio that gave us Saiyan Saga and later Xenoblade Chronicles. So, was this game a forgotten gem, or was it just hidden behind the Dragon Ball name? Let's dig in, break down its systems, and see if it's still worth playing today. Attack of the Saiyans dropped in 2009, published by Namco Bandai, and as I mentioned, developed by Monolith Soft. Knowing their pedigree, you can already expect a layer of polish that's not usually seen in anime tie-ins. The story covers the end of Dragon Ball, specifically the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, before moving into the Saiyan Saga of Dragon Ball Z. That means, for once, you don't boot up the cartridge and fight Raditz right away. Instead, you experience the transition from late Dragon Ball into early Z, which is actually so refreshing. And in my mind, this approach does two different things. One, it builds a solid RPG foundation with more content than just the major fights that we all are familiar with. And two, it gives the side characters like Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien a little more spotlight before they become food for the Saiyans. At least the latter two. And speaking of food, you'll spend a lot of time fighting wolves, snakes, and for some reason gigantic dinosaurs, because that's just how Dragon Ball Z works. And honestly, if you checked out the enemy list without context, you'd think the Z fighter's biggest nemesis wasn't Vegeta, it's National Geographic. At its heart though, Attack of the Saiyans plays like a traditional turn-based RPG. You've got your classic commands, attack, defend, skills, and items. But where it really stands out is its rage meter. As your characters attack or take damage, the rage bar fills up. When it maxes out, you can unleash team attacks, which are flashy, cinematic combo moves that look like they came straight out of the anime. These aren't just eye candy either. They do serious damage and encourage actual strategy. Along with that, you can also save up to utilize ultimate moves, which are really fucking cool in this game. Specifically, Goku's Spirit Bomb and Kaioken are so much fun to pull off and do serious damage to later game enemies. My favorite to look at were Gohan's Burst Rush and his Miracle Full Force. They are so cool. And instead of spamming Kamehameha every single turn, it gives you the chance to think, do I save rage for a combo finisher? Do I burn it early to wipe out enemies? That kind of decision making is what makes this system so engaging compared to other games. And best of all, every character on the roster feels unique. Piccolo leans towards heavy hitting skills, while Krillin brings utilities with debuffs and healing items. Gohan grows from so weak in the beginning of the game to surprisingly powerful. And Yamcha, he's playable, and all jokes aside, he's not downright terrible in this game. In fact, I would say this is the most useful Yamcha has ever been. Sure, his fate is still set in stone against the Cybermen, but before that moment, he's actually really useful in regular encounters. And plus, spoiler alert, you do have the opportunity to revive him after his untimely demise, so W Yamcha. Outside of battle, you explore the world from a top-down perspective. You'll move through forests, caves, towns, and iconic Dragon Ball landmarks. Now, this is a DS game, so you can't go in expecting open world freedom, but the environments are fairly large, and the sprite work is so charming. Each area feels distinct, and the simple visuals actually help the pacing. You're not bogged down with loading or overly complex maps. There are treasure chests, hidden items, optional bosses, and branching paths that make exploration feel so rewarding. Sometimes you stumble into new moves or even equipment, and other times it's just a med kit thing that heals 5% of your HP. But hey, it's something. The only real drawback is the random encounter rate. It's high, like Final Fantasy II level high. You'll be walking 2 steps and suddenly, bam, another group of wolves or mercenaries demanding a fight. It keeps you on your toes, but can also get repetitive really fast. But one thing that really surprised me is just how difficult it can be. Licensed anime games usually go pretty easy on you and are a piece of cake, but Attack of the Saiyans, it doesn't mess around. Regular enemies deal noticeable damage. Healing items, limited at least early game, and bosses, they'll punish you if you try to brute force your way through. The Nappa fight, especially, is infamous. If you're not properly leveled and playing smart, he will wipe your team. This is where the grind comes in. You'll spend a fair amount of time battling wildlife just to keep up with the difficulty curve. On one hand, it slows the pacing a bit, but on the other, it makes these victories that you do receive eventually feel oh so rewarding. Watching Gohan go from a drag, a scared little kid, to an actual legitimate contributor in battle feels so special. But needless to say, if you're going into this game expecting to steamroll everything as Goku, you're in for a big reality check. Strategy, buffs, debuffs, rotations specifically, actually matter here. The story itself is a faithful retelling of the Saiyan Saga. You'll see Raditz' arrival, Gohan's brutal training under Piccolo, Yamcha's legendary death pose, Nappa wrecking everybody, and the climactic showdown with Vegeta himself. To pad things out, Monolith Soft sprinkled in plenty of side quests and filler encounters. Bandits, mercenaries, and random creatures make appearances that never even happened in the anime, but they add length and give more to do outside the major plot beats. And honestly, I usually don't like filler, but I think this was a really smart decision. It gives Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and other characters a lot more spotlight than they would ever receive otherwise. In most DBZ games, they're benched almost immediately, but here, they actually feel really relevant. Presentation is another strong point. The sprites are crisp, combat animations are full of energy, and the soundtrack fits the tone really well. It's not anime level iconic, but it gets the job done and keeps battles engaging for the most part. For a DS cartridge, this is about as polished as Dragon Ball could ever look. Of course, no game comes without its quirks, and this one has some unintentionally awkwardly funny details. Firstly, as I mentioned, the enemy scaling. Wolves and snakes in this game are stronger than Raditz. Imagine being a guy who kidnapped Goku's kid, fought Piccolo, and died in a massive explosion, only to realize your power level was lower than a forest wolf. Brutal, dude. Most importantly, however, the secret boss, which is way more powerful than the quote-unquote final boss, Vegeta, is Super Saiyan Broly. This, as a kid, threw me for a loop. I mean, why would Broly be in a game that only goes up to the Saiyan Saga? It just doesn't make any sense, and I think Turles, Dr. Willow, even Garlic Jr. would be such a better and more fitting final boss than Broly. But hey, it was a really challenging fight nonetheless. You have to go into this fight prepared. Broly does serious damage. I literally spent hours upon hours grinding my characters in post-game stages, only to get my ass handed to me by the legendary Super Saiyan himself. Eventually, of course, after plenty of hours of grinding and memorizing strategy, I beat the brute and received Broly's necklace, which gives you 50 additional stat points towards every criteria. Now, the only downside to that is Broly is pretty much the last thing to do in the game, so I don't know what you're gonna really use that for, but I felt pretty accomplished, not gonna lie. So, should you play Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans in 2025? The answer to that is absolutely yes. The combat system itself has enough depth to stand on its own, even outside of its Dragon Ball skin. So for a non-fan, I think it's still worth playing. And for an RPG fan, it's definitely worth playing. If you happen to be a Dragon Ball fan, it's one of the most unique adaptations of Dragon Ball, especially early Z, that you will ever find. Now, it's not perfect. The grind is insane. The encounter rate can get a bit tedious, and pacing does slow down the game in certain places, but overall, this is one of the best, if not the best, handheld Dragon Ball fighter. post Legacy of Goku trilogy. And it definitely reminds us the franchise can thrive outside of the fighting genre. Finding a physical copy today may take some hunting down, but if you do manage to get your hands on one, it's a very, very rewarding experience. And it also reminds us that there's proof. Dragon Ball, in the right hands, can make some of the best RPG adventures you'll ever find. And that, my friends, is my long-awaited review of Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to smash that like button. Comment below on if you played this game, if you plan to, and what you thought of it if you did. And make sure to subscribe. We're finally on the road to 4,000 subscribers. Can't thank you guys enough. I'm so happy to finally hit 3,000, man. And if you guys want to, you could join the membership. Get the video a couple days early. But as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.